Welcome to the Investor Den Blueprint to Financial Freedom podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of the biggest and most successful entrepreneurs, passive income investors, and capital raisers in the world. Our mission is to equip you with the essential tools, the mindset, and the skill sets necessary to conquer yourself, transform your life, and master your finances. Join us as we unravel the secrets and the strategies and wisdom of these industry experts, providing you with the invaluable insights and action steps that you can start implementing today. It's time to reclaim control of your time, allowing you to live a life of unrivaled success, happiness, and fulfillment. Get ready to unlock a world of growth and abundance that awaits you. Welcome to the Investor Den Blueprint to Financial Freedom podcast, where your journey towards financial empowerment begins.
All right, what's up, guys? So I'm super excited today. I'm actually going to be here with my good friend George from KPI Capital Partners.
KPI Capital Partners.
And he's also doing right now a very, very cool thing. It's called Investor Den. He's going to be doing an event coming shortly. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. But more importantly, you know, my audience is always asking me when I'm speaking to professionals like George and that are in the business is people always want to know how we get started, right? Because I think that a lot of us have a lot of either excuses in our minds of why not to move forward, or we have a lot of reasons that we find in ourselves of why we get stopped from going anywhere, right? And so, you know, like all of us in the business world, we'll tell you about 1,000 errors and failures, but we'll also tell you about 1,000 wins and success stories through the process. And so I'm always excited to ask people like George that, you know, I met about a year ago and I've seen the growth that he's had in multiple areas of real estate, which is actually really cool. And so I wanted to ask a couple of questions myself to get to know actually one of his most professional sides of the business where I'm still trying to learn is how to do syndications and raise capital because I think that's a big problem, or let's say a hang up I personally still have inside. And so we just want to know a little bit more about you, George. Like, what's your story? How'd you get in? And you know, why did you choose real estate specifically as your growth? Because I know you're an attorney, right?
Yeah, so I do have my Juris Doctorate. I don't practice because my passion is really, you know, on the finance side. And growing our fund, our syndication fund through KPI Capital Partners. We also have KPI Development. So we have, as you know, like you, we have a lot of development projects going, and so that's really what I like to do. So you know, I went to law school just because I liked the. It's like someone said a great quote that always stuck with me. It's like, you know, what better way to play the game than by knowing all the rules.
Right.
You know? And that's one of the reasons I went to law school. I never really had an intention to practice, to be honest with you. And so here.
But you learned the rules, right?
Oh man, yeah. Listen, I did finish top 5% of my class. We're not gonna brag.
All right.
At FIU College of Law, so which by the way, the top bar passing rate in the state of Florida for the last few years in a row. But that's a story for another time. But yeah, man. So I've been in real estate since about 2002, straight out of college. I graduated from Florida State University with a bachelor's degree in finance. And to your question, you know, why real estate, or how did I get into real estate? And you know, that's a funny story in and of itself, because coming, you know, right out of college, I was being recruited. I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker. And I was being recruited by this brokerage out of Chicago, based in Chicago. They had an office here in Boca Raton, Florida. Okay. And they were going to sponsor me for my Series 7 license and everything like that. And at the same time, I had some good friends of mine who were graduating around the same time, and they went into the mortgage business. And so I spent a couple of weeks at this brokerage, and to be honest with you, I just felt like it really wasn't for me.
The stock brokerage.
The stock brokerage.
Got it.
Because, you know, it just really wasn't my style. It was kind of like, you know, a lot of fast talking, like, you know, like Northeastern guys, if you know what I mean. Oh, yeah. This kind of like boiler room type of atmosphere, and, you know, like the fast pitch, this, that, the other. And that's not really my style. And so, you know, I was talking to a few of my friends, actually 3 of them. They all went to work at this mortgage brokerage at the time, back in 2002, and they were doing really well for themselves. and I wasn't happy where I was, so I decided to make a switch about 2 months into my stock brokerage career, and my first paycheck a couple weeks in was a nice 5-figure paycheck, and closed my first deal, and then I never looked back. So from that point forward, I just started getting more experience, and eventually I went on to open my own mortgage brokerage, literally mom and pop, because my mom was my business partner.
Right.
She was the broker.
So mom and son,
mom and son, I guess, yeah. And man, we grew that from about 2004 through all the way through 2008, right during the the whole market crash. But during that time, man, we grew the company. We had up to, I want to say, close to about, we were approved about 50 different lenders, correspondent lenders, wholesale lenders, and we were doing very well. We were growing the company. We had a lot of mortgage brokers that were working for us that were all doing very, very well. And then of course, the bottom fell out with the market, as
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And at the time, I was already, I was young kid, like between 24 and 28 years old, and my trajectory was going up, and I thought, like, this is easy, like, this, what could go wrong,
Right.
I started buying a couple properties the traditional way. So I had two rental condos, and then the condo here in Miami in Brickell where I lived, and just bought a brand new car. Everything was going great, and then summer 2007 rolled around, and I started to see the writing on the wall, and little by little, everything just started falling apart till basically '08 when the bottom fell out, and I pretty much lost my ass. I had to do short sales in 2 of my apartments. I mean, they were, completely underwater. I went from where I lived, my apartment, my condo in Brickell, I had like $300,000 equity in it. And within 6 months, I was underwater by like $200,000.
Wow.
So it was like a $500,000 swing in equity. Next thing I know, I found myself underwater. They were all going into default. I was at the brink of bankruptcy. And I started sort of taking my knowledge of the banking industry, and before anybody really knew what short sales were, before short sales were popular, before even I myself knowing what I was doing necessarily or what it was called, I was negotiating some sort of settlement with the bank, and I was able to actually short sell my properties. And because I started researching, okay, what can I do?
So your own personal
So I
properties.
started just calling them, and sure enough, I was able to negotiate short sales on my own personal properties. And from there, I realized, like, okay, so I feel like people are going to need this at some point, And so after a couple months of just kind of trying to figure out what to do, obviously things were really, really tough. After thinking, everything was so easy, right?
That was a wake-up call.
Oh yeah, a nice punch in the gut. I pivoted, and I started working at a law firm, and they were doing consumer law, foreclosure defense, bankruptcy, that kind of thing, and but they didn't have a settlement department, which became known as the loss mitigation department. And so I started working with them, and I was basically the only person in the loss mitigation department. And slowly but surely, we had a second person, and then next thing you know, it began to grow and grow. And so I was their director of loss mitigation, and we were negotiating loan modifications, short sales, short payoffs, a lot of different settlements. I was going to mediations. And so in those days, when someone was in foreclosure, you would go to a mediation, and then you have the attorneys on either side. But the bank would always bring one of their account specialists, kind of like their numbers guy. And so on the foreclosure defense side, they didn't really have anyone. So then I started going to these things and structuring, and then really hashing out the numbers, and basically deconstructing how these people got approved for a mortgage in the first place, going over the debt to income ratios, their
nothing that
income and
existed,
expenses,
things that didn't exist.
That's another story, right? A lot of the stated programs, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But going into their hardships and basically just negotiating right there at the table, and I really kind of fell in love with that process. So I left that one firm and went to another firm and continued doing the same thing with their loss mitigation, and I got inspired and I got encouraged by the partners at that firm to go to law school. So at this point I'm about 10 years removed from my undergrad, so around 2012, because I've been already doing this for a few years.
Okay.
And decided to go to law school. So I was working during the day, going to law school at night, and just reviewing tons of loss mitigation files and helping people better their situation, and it was a great process. But along the way, one thing I noticed, especially on the short sale side, for our the clients that we were representing that were the ones selling their properties, short selling their properties, I started noticing, because I had to review the contracts. So I started noticing a lot of repeat buyers. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't I see this buyer like last month? And then I started noticing, there would be a handful of buyers that kept coming back and buying more properties. And I'm like, wait a minute, I want to be on that side of the table. I want to do what they're doing. So I started educating myself. I went to my first conference. It was, I don't know if you guys remember that show, Flip or Flop, with Tariq Musa and his wife. I signed up for it. They had a conference here in Miami. I went to it, a little 2-day event, and then they had a big conference out in Las Vegas. I signed up for that. I went to that. It was a 3-day event, and then I got really inspired, and I went all in. I put down a nice investment.
You bought the program.
I did. I bought the program. And the rest is history, because right around 2015, I still had a year left of law school. By then, the whole foreclosure crisis had already been winding down. People already kind of started to come, back on the upswing, and there really wasn't the volume there. And at this point, I'm making 6 figures, and the law firm is like, "Well, you're still in law school.
Right.
We pay you too much to be an intern. You can't really go to court and practice because you haven't graduated yet. We're kind of dissolving our loss mitigation department." And so I started to see that writing on the wall. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go again. But this time I was ready. I was prepared. And my first client actually came. It was actually one of our clients from the law firm. And I ended up buying their property. It was a nice, complicated deal. It was it was a probate. Unfortunately, the seller, the gentleman's mother, had passed away. She didn't have any type of will or anything like that. So it was a completely probate deal. He was in foreclosure.
Got it.
He was about to go into bankruptcy, and so I wanted to help him out. So. The property was pretty much paid off. It needed a ton of work. It was a nice little condo here in Miami. And I started running my numbers, doing my comps. I saw that the property, fixed up could be worth about, 180 or so. It was paid off. So I just offered him, $100,000 and put $1,000 deposit. And I helped him. I remember I used to have to, we became friends. He didn't have a car. He used to work at the IHOP across the street from where his building was. So I would pick him up after work sometimes. I would, I'd take him to the attorney's office, and so it was my first deal. I had a lot of time on my hands.
Those are the ones that you go extra for.
And but you know what, man, it paid off. A couple months later, so I was able to actually find someone that was doing rehabs, and I did just a simple assignment of contract, and I sold him to him for 120. I knew he could put about 30 into it, which obviously I wish I could have at that time. And so he had a nice amount of equity in it. He took the deal at 120, and we ended up closing on it. And I turned my $1,000 investment into $20K within maybe about 4 to 5 weeks from when I left the firm. And I'm like, I looked at that. I'm like, well, this is about 2 months worth of income in about, a month. And then I just went all in. So,
Right.
buying into the course and learning, because even though I was in law school, right, and I knew all about contract law and I knew all about real estate law, and I already done hundreds and hundreds of real estate transactions from years in my mortgage business through all the years in loss mitigation and everything like that. I didn't know that side of it. I didn't know about creative financing. I didn't know about wholesaling. I didn't know about all these different strategies, right? So I learned about all those through the program, and I put it into practice. I put it all together. I did the first deal, and the rest is history.
That's awesome, man. You know what? I never knew this story from you. That's interesting. We all have stories in our business, like I had said earlier. It's so important. Now, let me ask you a question I wanted to know, because as I'm listening to your story, I think a lot of people, seems like you did a lot of pivoting through your growth, right? And I feel like a lot of people get stuck in, let's say, your initial failure, right? Being a mortgage broker between 24 to 28, you're obviously living on the top of the world, driving a nice car, making probably great money, you and your mom running a business, like,
bottle service every Saturday.
Bottle services every Saturday.
Looking back now, I wish I would have saved all that money.
Well, it's a 24-year-old. What can we expect from that guy? If you go back to him, you probably would still make the same decision, right? But let me ask you this, because I think excuses and I think mindset plays a big role. So obviously you've done business for your mom, so I'm sure your upbringing has been pretty great. But what do you think, or what were you telling yourself? And, were you doing any specific things that kept your mind clear and taking that hit and not saying, maybe this is not for me, versus, I'm going to get into something else, I'm going to stay in the space, learn it again, I'm going to come back again. Like, what mindset, what things were you doing at that moment in order to stay, sharp and continuing to move and not get frozen?
Yeah. So, I guess part of the story that I kind of glossed over was, during that time in, between 2007 and 2008, I mean, there was a solid, 6 to 8 months where, I just wasn't really, I was just sort of scrambling, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I always knew that I wanted to be in real estate. In the back of my mind, I mean, just growing up, I always saw that, and I just kind of reading and everything like that, I always knew that, a lot of the creation of wealth in general in this country has been created through real estate.
Correct.
And I just wanted to I guess, prove something to myself. But at the time, I wasn't really looking at it like that. But I remember, and honestly, this is something that I kind of like gives me goosebumps just thinking about it now. And I'm applying that today. I applied it during COVID, and I continue to apply it through my career. But I remember there was a point because, depression sets in, you're just kind of doubting yourself. I won't get into specifics, but at the same time, it's just kind of like a lot of things were happening. I experienced a loss in the family. My sister had passed away, and all this within that same 6-month period. And all these things were happening. Everything was crumbling around me. And at one point, I decided, I made a choice. I literally looked in the mirror and I said, okay, I gotta get myself together. But even more than that, I from studying and just looking at the market cycles and everything like that, I knew something was going to happen again another 10 to 12 years from then, even before we were still out of it.
Right.
And I made a promise to myself that I was going to be in the position next time, because again, one of the things, and I just talked about this in a webinar I did earlier, was if you look back to the history of this country, the most transfer of wealth in history has always happened during times of economic downturns, during the Great Depression, just during COVID, just recently in the last 2 years, I believe 5.2 new millionaires were created that weren't millionaires before COVID. So in 2019 they were millionaires, and from then now they've become millionaires. And obviously there's a lot that goes into that with technology and all these different access to information now and everything like that. But even back in the Great Depression, that's still still ranked number 1 transfer of wealth in this country. So what that told me was that there's two sides to the coin, right? And anytime there's a downturn, you have to position yourself. You want to be on the right side of that coin and position yourself and be prepared to basically end up on the, like I said, on the right side. I equate it to like, like surfing, right? So that you position yourself to catch that wave when it's at the bottom so that you can ride it back up.
Correct.
And that's what the downturn is. You see prices going down, you see things going down. And so if you get caught up with, the news cycle and the gloom and doom, and that's all you're focusing on, then that's all you're going to see. And so I remember back in 2008, I was caught in that cycle and I dragged myself out of it. And I remember consciously making a decision that, the next time around, I'm not going to allow myself to get caught in this position. And honestly, that's my mindset today. And I still think back to that.
That's awesome, man. Like one thing I've been through, I wasn't in the '08 business. I wasn't in real estate at that time. I actually become a real estate agent in '07. So I had no chance to even get to learn how great it was. But I've also had very, tough experiences in my life. And one of the things that I have like really focused on, and as you were talking, you said something there that's important. I want to know how important it is to you. Like in those moments that I've gotten like really, really dark, I've really leaned on learning how to read, listening to audios, and getting around education. And so that was something that has always gotten me out of my holes, right? I think people fall into these places and then they don't get around the people that also have done it and then educate through them how the hell to get out, right? As you were talking a little while ago, you told me that, you drank the Kool-Aid and you bought the flipper flop, education. How important is...
Listen, I remember I maxed out like 2 credit cards to do it. But you know what? On the first deal, like I'm pretty much paid for, 2/3 of the.
Yeah, look, for me it's been, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like my real first education for me was Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Because I was in dark places, right?
Too. I agree with
so
that.
I didn't want to learn more about a trade. I wanted to learn how to get out of the darkness.
Yeah.
And so Tony became like my godfather, he then took me to another education because I met more people that would tell me, oh, if you like this, you should educate about this and educate about that. So like how important is education to you and the growth of your business?
Yeah, so there's 2 components to that question. So just education in general. So, like to your point before about, investing in education, I'm at the point now where I'm fortunate enough that that I have the means, but I on average I think I probably invest anywhere between 50 to 60K a year in education alone. I mean, I probably spent more in education the past couple of years than my entire what it costs to go to law school.
Better than bottle services, right?
Well, yeah. Listen, I could definitely get a higher ROI. Trust me. So yeah, and rather than doing that, so I'd rather I'll invest in masterminds and there's different factors that come along with that, right? Yes, the education is good because it's important to know the fundamentals and really get to know your craft, your trade. But what I also like about it is the fact that when you're with a room with like-minded individuals, the networking aspect of it, you get to meet people. I mean, that's kind of how we met because we're kind of going in the same circles.
Correct.
Through all these different mentorships and masterminds, and even though we didn't necessarily know each other personally, I knew of you, I knew what you were doing, and I know that you were doing different stuff, that we were kind of had similar trajectories or converts at some point. But that's what's really important about education. It's the information itself, but also the networking and getting around the right people, the right like-minded people, because they're going to uplift you. Which brings me to the next part of the question, which is the mindset side of it, right? Because a lot of times, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset to be in a place where you're ready to take action, where you have the confidence, you believe in yourself, you have the right support around you, that maybe it's a little less scary to jump into something where maybe you have a mentor or at least some sort of support system that you can lean on, that you can go to and bounce questions and ideas off of, and that's sort of where my growth really started to happen, is definitely within the mindsets aspect of it. But then even now, like the people that I hang around with, like all my friends, we're involved in something together, or at least we're in the same space. I go to lunches, I go to dinner, and we're like talking about ideas, kind of like us. Like we we go to each other's homes. I've been to your kids' birthdays, you've been to my kids' birthdays.
Correct.
And while we're doing social stuff, we're still able to, bounce ideas. Hey, I see you're doing this. Hey, I see you're doing that. And then you're just able to sort of like continue to grow and expand your mind because you're surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals. I mean, I still have friends that I love dearly from, kind of like before and like college and everything like that. But it's not the same when I go around, my friends that I'm doing business with, that we do business together, we hang out, families hang out together, we do lunches together, we go to dinners together, because it's like you're constantly evolving and growing because you're feeding off of each other,
Yeah, it's funny. My dad's a Cuban guy, and unfortunately, when I was young, I was a little bit of a rebel. I'm not saying I'm much better now, but at least I have more control of the little Tasmanian. But my dad used to always tell me a phrase that would say, dime con quien tú andas y te diré quién tú eres, right? And so for those that don't understand Spanish, it was tell me who you hang with, and I'll tell you who you are. And I used to always be like, what do you know, man? Like, you have no idea. Today, more than ever, I am so careful with who I surround myself with, right? I want to, obviously, the demon inside of me always wants to be in a crowd that makes my old me wake up. But I see the value in being around people that are pushing forward, that are investing in themselves, that are, today more than ever, a good family man, a good father, a good spouse, a good friend. And so, I invest in, like you said, $50,000 to $60,000 a year easily to be surrounded by people, because for me, it's so important. Sometimes when something happens to you, you think it's the biggest thing in the world and like no one else can overcome it. And wow, you don't even know my story. And then you go in a room like that and they tell you a story that makes yours like this big.
And they've overcome it.
And they overcame it and they became better because of it. And then suddenly you're like, damn, what am I doing, right? Because if you stay around this little circle that instead of showing you what can happen on the other side, they just feed the problem that's currently happening, right? Because there are circles that just love to stay in the drama and be like, oh my God, I cannot believe, versus, for people that pay for education like that are other people that want to get the hell out of their shit, right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? You can't get to where you want to get unless you surround yourself with other people that are already there.
Correct.
That can help you. Because if you stay, around sort of like, kind of like dwelling in the same sort of, drama, like you're saying, I mean, you're not going to really see your way out of it. And so something that and this is something that Tony Robbins really talks a lot about is, it's like what you focus on, that's what grows.
Correct.
He has this analogy that like, a race car driver, they're not driving thinking, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall. Because the minute you start thinking don't hit the wall, you're looking at the wall, what's going to happen? Your brain doesn't understand the difference between you and don't. I'm George Fajardo, the host of Investor Den, Blueprint to Financial Freedom podcast. We're a community passionate about creating wealth through passive income investments in real estate, digital assets, as well as luxury assets. We believe your expertise aligns with our mission, and we'd like to invite you as a guest on our podcast. Show our audience what's possible and provide the evidence to elevate their beliefs. If you're an expert in real estate, digital assets, or luxury assets, join us. Inspire our community, share your insights, success stories, and strategies. We would be honored to have you join us and be part of a movement that's changing lives. Together, let's unlock the secret to financial freedom and embrace abundance. Join us at Investor Den, where we're creating wealth through passive income investment. We're excited to have you as a guest and look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. This is George Fajardo signing off from Investor Den. So like your brain doesn't process the difference between the positive and the negative, and this is a neurological scientific fact. And like I said, Tony Robbins is one of the ones that talks about this, but it's in a lot of different literature. So if you're thinking wall, whether you're thinking hit the wall or don't hit the wall, your brain just
says wall.
Right? So, a race car driver, they're looking where they're going. They're not looking where they're not going. And so that's really my focus. And that's why I also try to, protect myself from a lot of like what I consume, like in terms of like the news and the negativity and things like that. So I try to always, like focus on, growing my knowledge base and trying to find, okay, like I said, yeah, maybe there is a recession coming, or maybe we're already in one. But what am I going to do? Sit here and cry and whine about it and wait for someone to come and rescue me? Because the government's not going to do it. I don't care who the president is. I don't care who your governor is. I don't care who, whatever elected official is. They're not going to come to save you. It's your responsibility to save yourself.
Correct.
And so you're not going to do that by just sitting there sort of like wallowing in your pity and waiting for someone to rescue you. And so I try to block out a lot of this negativity, and I try to focus on what I can control and what I can do. And so that's my mindset today.
That's awesome, man. I think the most successful people have that type of mindset, right? Because I think the other side is so easy, but it's the flock where everybody's hanging out. And I think becoming that way kind of allows you to get out of the masses. Yeah. And so it's so important. Now, let me ask you this. Like, when I first met you, what I knew about you was wholesaling. And then when I really got to know you, it was more syndications, bigger deals, raising capital.
Yeah.
So being that you've been in so many different aspects of real estate, which one do you love the most and why, right? That's something I want to know.
So honestly, I love them all, and I look at it like a toolbox or my tool belt, right? You can't use a hammer for something that requires a screwdriver, right? And what I mean by that is this. Yeah, I started wholesaling, and I still say that wholesaling is sort of like the lowest barrier of entry if you want to get into real estate investing.
Correct.
Because like I said, with $1,000 investment, I was able to, make $20,000 off of that deal, right? And from there, it just kept growing. And even though, for example, at the very beginning, I was wholesaling, the way I started, raising capital was kind of a funny way because, I was kind of getting a lot of contracts. We were making a lot of offers, and we were getting a bunch of contracts or deals under contract. And so I started going to people and saying, hey, I'm doing this wholesale deal, and do you want to partner with me? I just need the money for the deposit. Okay, so I need a $2,000 deposit on this one deal, and my knowledge, I know how to protect your money, how we're not going to lose it because we have the inspection period. This is how it works. If I don't have already contract ready to close, you know what? I'm going to cancel. You get your money back. If we do close, I'll partner with you and I'll double your money, right? So on a $20,000, what do you make on an average wholesale? Especially back in those days, 15, 16, 17. 15, 18,000 was probably the average, maybe 10 worst case scenario.
Right.
So what did I care, if I had to give someone, their 2,000 back plus 2,000, if I'm making $10,000 or $15,000 on a deal, I'm still netting the difference. They're happy. They just double their money in a month. And because I was getting so many deals, and I was talking about, my friends, from childhood, my family, and then, everybody's saying, oh, do you have another deal coming up? And so we started, kind of like growing that way. And then I remember doing my first flip, but now I needed like $40,000, and I'm like, okay, where do I get $40,000? Like from one, like everybody's used to give me $1,000 here, $2,000 there. I'm like, I'm not gonna go to 20 people and get 40. I'm like, so again, this is about being in the right places at the right time. So at the time, I was going to DREA, the Dade Real Estate Investor Association here, which I know you and I cross paths through there a lot, And one of the contractors that I met through there, he was doing, this guy Mike, his name is Michael, also a great guy. He used to do my inspections for me on my deals, but I knew he was also a contractor. And he went to do an inspection on this deal, and I was going to wholesale it. I wasn't sure, it was a really good deal. And while he's doing the inspection, I'm like, hey, here are the numbers, really good deal, but I don't, I wish I could do the rehab on it. But I don't have, I can get the financing, I can get the hard money side, but I still need the equity side, the other, 30, 40K. And he's like, well, I'll partner with you, and I'll bring in that, and you do the loan, and we'll do it together. And then from there, snowballed, and then, we were flipping between 2016, 17, 18, and even into 19. It's growing, but at the peak, we were doing probably I knew we were buying about 7 houses a quarter. So we were doing about 35 to 40 houses a year that we were rehabbing. But then it goes back to my whole passive income thing now, right? It was grind.
Right.
It was a grind. So all of a sudden, okay, now I'm not working for anyone, but I'm still trading my time for money, because I'm managing, at any given point I had about, a pipeline of about 6 or 7, rehabs
Properties going on at the same time?
At different stages going on at the same time. And so that's when I'm like, well, I always wanted to get into the bigger stuff. And even before that, I wanted to start keeping, because I was still being very transactional and sort of like just, like selling, but I wasn't keeping anything because I was afraid of, well, I need this, this 20, 30K I'm going to make on this deal just to kind of, keep things going. And I was afraid of like, oh, I'm going to rent it now and I'm going to make, $400, $500 a month. That's not going to do anything for me. But I knew in the back of my mind that long term, that's the way to start creating wealth. And so finally, after 2 years of kind of being afraid to take that next step, I did it. I did it with the property, the one over there in Buena Vista. That was, I think that was the first one. It was one of the first two. And the way I did it was by accident, because I got the idea going through networking events and everything. I met this guy that was an Airbnb host, an Airbnb manager, and all these times I had the properties on the market, they were just sitting there. I'm still paying interest. And so I got the idea. I'm like, listen, this property's in a great location. If you furnish it and you market it, we're Airbnb, and even for just 2 months while I sell it, then
hey, extra money, right?
Extra money. I'll split. I'll cover my overhead, and I'll split it with you 50-50, the profits. And I mean, the property was making like a 3x above what my costs were. And like 2 or 3 months in, I'm like, take it off the market. We're keeping it. I refied it, and then from there I got comfortable. And little by little, and it's just like everything. I remember when I was like, when I was doing my rehabs, were all just little cosmetic things. And I remember my first roof, I was terrified. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, big expense, a big roof, da da da. And now we're doing, multi-million-dollar, ground up construction.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. But it's great, man, because a lot of people, I think, it's awesome to hear stories like that, because a lot of people, I feel, find all these reasons why not to move forward. Like, that was super creative by raising the down payment and giving them back 100% of their money, right? The deposit, right? An escrow, that can be as little as $2,000. That people might be, wow, I'm not going to use my $2,000, and you just tell somebody, hey, give me $2,000.
It's an escrow.
It's protected. You have an inspection period that if day number 9 I cancel, it's your $2,000 back. And if I make whatever I make, you're gonna double your money. I never thought about that. I was sharing a story a little while ago that I was figuring out how to come up with this money. Never did I think, should I give 100% return people at $1,000? That's a great idea.
And it's not even return. I was like, listen, I put together a joint venture agreement, so there are principal in it with me. And that was sort of like my legal side.
Right, that's your legal brain.
So now we're partners. But you get, your equity you're putting in, and then my rest of my sweat equity and everything else, sourcing the deal and getting everything, obviously, And
bottom line is you found a way to get it done,
happy,
right? Yeah. And that's what I feel a lot of people get hung up on.
And that's where the relationships start growing, and kind of word of mouth, and like literally, I have friends calling me like, hey, do you have another deal?
What? It's $2,000. I get $2,000 back in 30 days. I want to do that deal. There's a transactional funder now. Here's 5. Here's 3. Here's 7.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, man. So I obviously want to talk about what's going on in the next, week and a half. I'm super excited. November 9th. I'm super excited. Thank you for putting me there to speak and being able to talk.
To come on and share.
But I want you to tell me, why is it the people that are viewing right now, why is it they need to be there, and what is it that you're going to be educating? Because obviously it's awesome. You've gone from wholesaling, as simple as, just trading paper, to rehabbing, 35 properties a year. So you're obviously not a rookie, to now raising capital, to building, a really cool house in Wellington that's going to be, now I find out there's going to be a famous guy behind it. So, there's a high possibility that that's going to happen. So it's super cool to know that you've been in all aspects. Like, what is it that you're going to be teaching in this event, and why people need to be there?
Yeah, so the event is on November 9th. So this through the new community that I've created, which is called Investor Den, and we're calling the event the Blueprint to Financial Freedom. And basically, it's going to be me sharing my journey. And the main thing I want to show people is that they're not as far off as they may think they are, as far as, getting to where they want to be. And so, I'm going to share sort of my story, what I've kind of shared with you here, and a little bit more in detail. But with that, I'm going to start really kind of getting deep into the strategies that I use, kind of like what I share right now about, with the deposit, raising that money, and slowly but surely how I began to grow, and basically show them the exact techniques that I've been using in my business, that we've basically taken and grown from that $1,000 investment that I told you about, where we now have a portfolio managing. Basically, we have about an 8-figure portfolio with assets under management, and then other things that as I've evolved, where we're also looking into making more passive income opportunities, also through, for example, the luxury and exotic assets, like the exotic cars, the yachts, we talked about. So, looking into actually acquiring, a yacht that we can charter that makes excellent returns, and as well as other digital assets that I know you're also into. So, for example, with a company that I'm partnered with, where we have a AI trading algorithm that we're licensing for people that are looking to make passive incomes through through the markets, the currency markets, the S&P, and different commodities and things like that. So I just basically want to share what my knowledge, and like I told you, the fact that all the money that I do invest on an annual basis continuously, I kind of want to share that with people now, and I want to be able to give a little bit of what the knowledge that I've gotten, and also not only that, but I also want to start kind of opening the doors to letting people, give them access to my network, like guys like you and guys like the other speakers, and sort of like the high net worth individuals and the sponsors that have been able to make us grow, because like what a lot of people may not know, like for example, multifamily, after you get beyond a certain point, let's say 50, 100 doors and up, you can have excellent credit, you can have the capital, you can have everything, but if you don't have the experience,
right, which is huge,
then Fannie Mae won't give you a commercial loan for that property, especially when you're talking about a 10, 15, $20 million deal. They care more about, because at that point, relatively speaking, anybody that's doing that, they have some capital, right, at whatever level. But what they care more about is someone that has the experience, an experienced operator. And lately, that's been my focus, is a lot of these masterminds and mentorships that I've paid into, is so that I can meet and build relationships with these people that are doing it, that that have several hundred, if not in some cases a few thousand doors that have that. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to force those relationships. And right now we're involved in a couple big deals. One, a 212 unit in Las Vegas, another 94 unit in Georgia. These operators, these general partners, have been gracious enough to after building relationship with them, allow us to come in as a co-GP, co-general partner with them, and really participate in these bigger deals. And that's what I want to, and as an extension of that, I want to share my network with the people that that come there and attend our event.
Right, so the event's not only going to be information. The big value there is going to have the network that you've worked very, very hard throughout the years to build, and then people have the access to plug in.
Exactly.
Because like you said, there's a lot of people that might find a 200 unit building, but who's going to give them the funding, right? Right, like myself, if I were to find that right now and the lenders asked me, what have you operated? The biggest I can say is 20 right now.
Right, and listen, that's huge. That's more than 99.9%, and that was my case. I had an 18 door, a 20 door, a 10 door, a 12 door, but I couldn't break into that until I made the decision to, okay, now I got to invest into this network, and that's been my focus since about 2000. I meant to start 2019. 2020 kind of derailed everything a little bit, but back in 2021, I jumped back in once everything was up and running again, and I really went full board with it, and it was humbling, because coming from the single family space where I felt that I was pretty well versed and everything, I had to kind of take a step back now and become a student all over again, because it's completely different underwriting process, completely different analysis, and different conversation, different language, different verbiage, completely different, caliber of people that you're dealing with now, because now you're getting into more of that high net worth and institutional investors and private equity and family offices, and it's no longer borrowing $1,000 from my buddy here and there. Now we're talking about
big money,
yeah,
big money.
big money. So, but that's what life is about, man. You got to continue to grow and evolve, and I want to share that with people and hopefully be able to bring them along on my journey and continue growing together.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be there speaking about what I can offer, but I am more excited about learning what you're talking about right now because like you are, I'm a student. I continue to be a student. There's a lot of areas in real estate that I still don't know. I'm okay to say that. And I always want to be in rooms with people that are better than me and that have more than me and they can teach me. Because if I'm in the room and I'm the best guy, I'm obviously in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room,
and so I'm excited to not only speak and share what I can share and hopefully influence and help people, but I'm also very excited to be around those that can teach me. And so, George, one thing that I always lean on and I love to always share and I put a lot of emphasis on is mindset. Obviously, your growth had to have taken and probably still takes a lot of working on yourself, because going from, like you said, raising 1,000 to figuring out how to raise millions, there's got to be some blocks in the middle, right?
Along every step of the way, trust me.
Because I have
sleepless nights.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be a lot. So, like, what can you give advice on, and what do you think everybody should be applying in whatever stage that they're at in order to constantly get to that next level?
So this is a recurrent theme, and you're going to hear me say this a lot in the event, but I heard this actually at a networking event. I think you were there at this one event, one of the guest speakers. He said something that really has stuck with me, and it's this. It's, so the human mind requires evidence to support your expanding belief system. And what that means is that you have to surround yourself with the individuals that are doing what you want to do or are where you want to be, so that you can see, number one, that it's possible. Okay, but that's just the beginning. Once you start to see that it's possible, not on TV, not distantly, but close to you, within your proximity, that's the first step. But the second step is you also have to then begin to believe that it's possible for you. Okay, and that comes with that same proximity. So the closer you are to these individuals, that you see that it's possible. Once you start to see that it's possible for them, and you start to surround yourself with them, all of a sudden your mind starts to believe that it's possible for you. But what's going to get you sort of across that finish line is that, and this is where a lot of the internal work has to come in, is that you also have to believe that you deserve it. You have to believe that you have to set your standards to where you deserve to have that. So not only do you have to believe that it's possible, you have to believe that it's possible for you, but you have to believe that you deserve it. And I think a lot of times that's the hardest part, because we may not feel that we deserve certain things sometimes, but and the way you do that is by keeping the promises you make to yourself, setting goals and achieving those goals, even if it's just as stupid as it sounds. Make your bed, go to the gym every day. I mean, there's days I don't want to get up, and I'll go to the gym, at 4:35 in the morning. And not because whatever, but that's the only time I have, and I don't want to make an excuse for it. I mean, I recently just lost 60 pounds. I don't know if you.
Good job, man. I've been seeing that.
But because that I had to believe that not only that I could do it, but that I deserve to do it, and that's what gets me out of bed. It's like every time you hear, "Oh, what's your why?" This and that, and it kind of becomes kind of a hokey thing lately. Like a lot of people use it, but if you really use it for what it is. I mean, that a lot of it has to do with that. So that for me is one of the main things. It's really that three-tier process, three-step process of how you can put yourself in the right mental space to be able to achieve the goals.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, the one thing I got out of that was even the little things, right? Because I think we get so caught up in these big giant goals. But these big giant goals start by little tiny goals, right? Oh, I gotta have, a 6-pack. No, what you gotta do is wake up every day. right? And then we overlook the daily wake-ups. Or I want to make $1 million. No, what you gotta do is make 25 calls a day, right? Because the 25 calls a day, if you stick to them and you're committed to them, within 6 months you're gonna be better at them, you're sharper with them, you're quicker with them. They will result in the money, right? But I think everybody gets caught up in the big giant goal and forget about those little steps that you said. I wake up at 4:30, whether I'm having the best workout or the worst workout, but I'm there at 4:30, the 60 pounds will come, right? Oh, I haven't lost the 60 pounds, so let's not go to the gym anymore. No, guys, it's not that way.
The little things,
So guys, I'm super excited. So where can they find you? And then where can they find out more information about the November 9th event?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, George Fajardo, my name JorgeFajardo_official. And you can find out about the event on theinvestorden.com. That's theinvestorden.com.
That's awesome. You can also find them in Univision too. Because, hey, just say it, man. You just say it. So, all right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you got a lot of great information. Like I said, I always want to be bringing you great people like this that are going to share with you not only their wins, they're also going to share with you their losses and how they overcame things to become better. So thanks again, guys. Have a great one.
Hey there, awesome listeners of Investor Den's Blueprint to Financial Freedom podcast. We just wanted to take a moment to express our immense gratitude for allowing us to be a part of your journey towards becoming a successful investor and living your best life. If you found this episode valuable, please share with a friend who's interested in generating wealth through passive income and wants to achieve greatness in all areas of life. And if you really loved it, feel free to share it on your social media as a post or a story. As a thank you, we have a special gift for those who help spread our message. And if you share this episode, simply send me a message on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and let me know. You'll receive a special surprise as a token of our appreciation. And once again, thank you for being a part of our podcast family. Stay tuned for more episodes packed with valuable insights and strategies. Together we'll unlock financial freedom and create a community of empowered individuals.